So many people use drugs on the streets to cope with being homeless. Well, here are some of their stories. So what's your drug of choice?
Two of them, meth and heroin.
Why do you use meth and heroin to cope with being on the streets?
Heroin's for the pain that I feel, to be honest with. And meth is to pretty much, I logicalize it by saying that it's to stay up and watch my surroundings, make sure that nothing happens to me or the person that I'm with.
How hard is it to be on the streets?
Honestly, if you know what you're doing, not that hard, but a lot of people let the streets eat them up instead of them fucking, doing what they gotta do to survive. They end up getting played, I guess.
So why drugs to cope then?
Quick, easy, and readily available. Most of the time.
Is there a message you like to say to the people out there about you that misperceive you?
Yeah, don't ever judge a book by its cover, because some of us do move on and do have goals and will achieve them at no cost.
And how long do you plan on continuing with drugs?
I'm honestly trying to quit.
Do you have a projected quit date?
By September.
September. And today's date is what, 28th of June of 28th. Okay. All right, brother. Thank you. So what's your drug of choice?
Well, currently it's methamphetamine and marijuana. I'm an ex-heroin addict. I got 3 years clean on it.
How long you been on the streets?
About 10.5 months now.
And why do you use these drugs to cope with being on the streets?
Because I've been through a lot of stuff in my life, and these drugs that I've always turned to help me out. And down here, living on the streets, it gets you through the problems that you have, keeps you awake when you need to watch over your stuff, helps you stay in the right mindset and be on your toes like you need to.
How hard is it being out here on the streets of Portland?
Well, it all depends on who you are and how much you put into it. If you put your full effort into it, then it's not that hard. But if you're one of the people that's always like, oh, I'm homeless, this sucks, blah, 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 then it's hard. But for me, I do pretty well. Me and my family that I have down here do a good job because I watch out for my family.
Okay.
So.
What's your future plans on getting off of drugs?
Well, here soon, actually, I'm planning on going to Alaska for 6 months, and me and my lady are planning on going to leaving just up and going to Alaska and getting clean. So when we come back, we're clean.
What types of things do you do when you're on these drugs?
I help people out more. I'm more caring. I make sure they have what they need. I fight a lot. I stay awake. I move really fast, and I'm always paying attention to things that are around me.
Say you fight a lot. Why do you fight a lot?
Because there's a lot of problems down here that I don't like people stealing other people's stuff or talking shit to my youngsters or trying to check them the way they do and take their stuff. And I'm very protective over who runs with me, and I'm the one that nobody wants to fight. I mean, my nickname isn't Reckless for no reason.
Any misconceptions you'd like to correct?
No.
Nothing that anybody out there in the streets have a misconception about you?
I mean, I would say don't judge us just by who we are. We're people just like everyone else. It's just our lifestyle is different. Like, my reason for being on the streets, my whole family abandoned me and kicked me out and left me with nothing. So I turned it down here, and this is what's got me by the last 10 months since I got out the pen. And this is what's helped me out, so.
All right, thanks. Drugs, though horrible, are a temporary escape from the misery it's like to be homeless. Being homeless is not an easy thing, and it's not an easy feat in order to cope with it. So a lot of people go to running to drugs, and those are street drugs, whether prescription or whether man-made. Personally, as a drug addict, I went to drugs to get away from my own mind and to also get away from the society and the misery that I felt that I was being put in. All right. So what are your drugs of choice?
Marijuana, meth.
Marijuana and meth. How long have you been on the street?
Too long. That and about going on 2 years off and on. Going off about 10 years off and on.
Wow. Why do you use drugs to cope with being on the streets?
I use meth to stay up so that I don't get stolen from or beat up.
Okay.
I use marijuana to cope with the stress and anxiety.
What caused your homelessness?
A family member.
Okay, you don't have to go too deep into it. What any other reasons why you use drugs in order to cope with things? How do drugs help you cope?
They make me forget things. They make me forget the bad and just concentrate on the good.
They make you forget what?
Forget about the bad for a second and concentrate on the good.
What are your future plans to quit quit doing drugs?
Once I actually get into a place.
Yeah. And how soon do you plan on doing that?
Hopefully here soon.
Yeah. How hard is it for you out here on the streets?
Got beat up a lot. May it be a rumor or a lie or somebody just trying to start trouble. Always. It's like I'm small, so they think that they can get over on me. But I always said that they can go out of the
How hard is it to be a female and be on the streets?
It's really hard. That in itself makes you vulnerable. There are a lot of men out here, and a lot of them will try to take advantage of you.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Drugs of choice.
Methamphetamines.
Methamphetamines. And why do you use them to cope with being on the streets?
At first it was to get numb and to like not feel any of the pain that I've had to deal with through my whole entire childhood in my life. And so I blocked those memories out. But now lately, every time I use, I kind of feel some of that pain that I wanted to numb in the first place.
How long have you been using?
I've been using methamphetamines for about 6 years.
What's it like being a woman and being on the streets?
It sucks because you have to deal with like perverts, child molesters, rapists that just got out of prison, and they're all institutionalized. So they all think that it's prison and they can do what they want, and basically we can get snatched up pretty quick and pretty easy.
So where do you see your future?
I graduated high school 2009 with a 4.0, and I graduated by cooking too, and I love to cook. So I mean, I'd like to work with Chef Ramsay one day and own my own restaurant.
So that's your inspiration?
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to say to the people about misconceptions of people that use?
Well, you only have one life to live, and live it up, but only to like a certain extent, you know? I've been in jail, I've done treatment, I've almost nearly lost my life to this drug and to this outside world of being homeless. It sucks, it's unfortunate, but life does get better, and just keep your head up, you know, and don't judge us for just because we are sleeping in a sleeping bag outside on a mat.
So is it pretty hard life out here then?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. drugs are a hardcore reality in these people's lives. Unfortunately, it being a terrible way to cope, they still do it in order to cope with what it's like to be on the streets. I personally know the experience because when I did it, I was coping to get away from the reality of what it was like to be on the streets. It isn't easy, especially for women. And it wasn't even easy for me, being a late 20s male. Using drugs is not advisable, but at the same time, it's understandable why people do use drugs. Nor am I making excuses for those people, but it's an obvious reality that when reality is reality, you try to escape that reality. I don't blame them. I don't judge them. I just pray for them.